All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jay Anthony Franke, aka Jake Summers, aka Paul Denton. Anyway, but look, for this, I'm aka Jake Summers from California Dreams, and I am very, very pleased to present a very old friend and a just a awesome dude, Patrick Maloney, who was our director for what was it, 32 episodes?
Yeah, 32, I think. Yeah.
Now, Patrick has been in the business for I think since what, 79? I think you did 33rd annual Tony Awards or something
I
like
worked I worked on the Tony Awards for like 5 different years. I had every job in that show from like office boy
that.
slave
Yep.
to at the end associate producer. You
Okay.
know, historical stories from those times because
Up to 70s.
there was so much going on and it's a hysterical. My boss was doing a show with Jerry Lewis, Revival of Hell's a Poppin', and he and Jerry Lewis had a giant feud. Jerry Lewis threatened to shoot him. And so he had like millions of dollars advance on this show. And he closed it in Boston out of spite to prevent Jerry Lewis from making his Broadway debut. Now, a month later on The Office Boy, I get a box addressed to Mr. Lewis of 120 pairs of white socks because Jerry Lewis had a deal with the Wigwam Sock Company that he would wear socks once and throw them out. And he would do publicity for them. And I have this box with 120 pairs of socks. I don't know what to do. And I go to my boss, Mr. Cohen. What should I do with this? Should I just forward it to Mr. Lewis's office? And he goes, yeah, Maloney, go do that. And I'm walking out of his office and he says, wait a minute. Do you ever wear white socks? And I said, occasionally. He goes, do you think other people in the office would like some white socks? And I see where he's going with this. I said, okay. So I spent the afternoon walking around and giving away 120 pairs of Jerry Lewis's white socks to everybody in the office. Hysterical.
Was did Jerry Lewis come looking for a socks or?
No, 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 no. He probably didn't miss them, but I don't know. But it was, I mean, stupid stuff happened all the time that you wouldn't believe.
That's
But
awesome.
that was Broadway, and it was an adventure and much fun when I was like in my late 20s,
Yeah.
making no money. I made $95 a week and commuting from New Jersey. But
Yeah.
it was my intro to showbiz, and it led me into getting my first sitcom, which was Love Sydney with Tony Randall and Swoosie Kurtz. It was the first
Yep.
sitcom shot in New York in like 30 years.
Yep.
And I kind of like backed into this job because somebody in our office knew the line producer on the show, Terry Guarneri, who went on to produce The Cosby Show.
Right.
And I interviewed with her and we had a very funny interview and I made her laugh, which is what I think got me the job. She didn't want to hire a West Coast associate director because it was going to cost a lot of money. They were already sending a writing staff and directors and all these people from LA. They were going to have to put up in a hotel and pay per diem. And it just made more sense to her to get a New York AD, but I had never done a sitcom before. Fortunately, the first director I worked with the first 2 weeks was Jay Sandrich, who directed the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Yep.
And Jay and I had something in common. Jay was very intimidating and brilliant, brilliant, brilliant director. And we had something in common. We had both recently broken up with girlfriends. And we were at the Russian tea room one night having a beer and we were like bonding. And I said, Jay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm an editing AD. And he said, I'm doing the first two shows. I'll teach you what I can in the next 2 weeks. And you watch me, because the next guy coming in, Tony Mordente, was a film director and was in the original company, West Side Story. He just passed away last week at 82, I think,
Oh, oh wow.
because he's not going to know how to do this. He's going to rely on you to do the camera work. I said,
Right.
Jay, I don't know how to do that. Just watch me and learn. And I did for 2 weeks. And I'm forever grateful to Jay that he gave me that like fast education that helped me get through the weeks with with Tony, who was a wonderfully funny guy.
I was gonna say, because you've been in multicam for 42 years, right?
Yeah, 42 years now.
And that brought you through what was it? Give Me a Break, Saved by the Bell, Herman's Head, My Two Dads, our show California Dreams, Boy Meets World, your current show Bunk'd. I think you did what, Richie Rich, Hang Time. Yeah, you just Jeff Foxworthy, Malcolm and Eddie, Homeboys in Outer Space, American Pie. The TV series. Like you've been pretty prolific. Um, I think what you were saying right there is like you credit Jay with kind of pushing you into that. Is that
Well,
fair?
you know, Jay gave me like the college education of how to do multi-camera sitcoms.
In like 2 weeks.
But my next director, Hal Cooper, who directed every episode of Maude, I think, Hal was my graduate school. I spent 5 years working with Hal, or 4 years maybe, and he directed every episode. And finally, the last season on the show, he just couldn't handle the conflict he had with the star Nell Carter, who was, you know, undiagnosed bipolar. She's very difficult to get along with,
Right.
on and off. One day
So
she'd
give me a
be,
break. Yes.
yeah, give me a break. One day she'd be lovely and terrific to work with. The next day, she would be horrible and impossible to work with.
That was a
And
well-kept secret too for the public, but go ahead. Yeah.
well, you know, people knew she had drug issues from the time she worked on Broadway doing Ain't Misbehavin',
Yep.
and all kinds of issues. But she had a voice from God, and she was a brilliant, brilliant comedian,
Yep.
and could be just a pleasure to work with. The the first show I directed, and I was the first new director in 4 years, and I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. But I'm making, you know, a good salary, but she's making 3 times what I'm making. And if she doesn't want to rehearse, if she wants to not do something, she's not going to do it. And yet I wouldn't let her walk on me because she didn't have like grouchy old Hal. She had like kindly young Pat, and she was trying to. We rehearsed for 3 days in a rehearsal hall in those days. And then we had 2 days on our set because we were sharing a stage with another show.
Yes.
So many sitcoms in production at the time. And we get into, and Hal had taught me, make sure when you come in, everything works. You have to do your homework and you have to make sure every shot you've planned is going to work, because in the first 10 minutes, the crew will decide whether they're behind you or not.
Right. Right.
And if you come in and everything works, they'll give you 110%. If not, you're going to see 4 guys sitting reading the newspaper behind their camera all day. Nowadays, it would be on their cell phones.
Mhm.
But we got into camera blocking, and I have every shot planned out. I know exactly what I want. And Nell starts reversing her blocking from rehearsal, where all week she's crossing from left to right. Now she's crossing from right to left. She's trying to make me look bad.
Right.
And she liked me, and she was trying to make me look bad. And I said on the stage address, and Nell, you're doing things a little differently than you did in rehearsal. Give me a couple of minutes. Let me change some shots, like all of them.
Right.
And, you know, so I get through it. And during the day, Nell says, because we butted heads a bit that day, I wasn't going to let her walk on me. It was like, you know, it was just a difficult situation. And she announced to the crew, says, if a new director can get through next day without yelling at me and raising his voice, I'm going to send him to Hawaii. So things calm down. We get to the next day, shoot day. And there were a couple of tense moments, but our sound man, Sam Malone, every time it looked like Nell and I were going to butt heads, he played Hawaiian music to the floor. And I'd be about to give her a note, and I'd hear Aloha Hoi coming up. And we get through the first show, and we finish, and we're about to go to dinner, and Nell's assistant comes up and says, here, Nell wanted you to have this. And she gives me an envelope, and I open it up, and it's a ticket from LA to Honolulu, one way.
So you had to bring yourself back if you were going to take
Yeah.
it.
It was trial by fire. And
Right.
then, you know, I did a deal to direct another episode, and I did 4 that first season.
Right.
And after that, we had other directors come in that she really hated. So the other 3 episodes I did, we got along fine and everything was terrific. But she made my first show a living hell.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it's a funny story now. It wasn't funny that week.
Right. Well, I guess that brings that pretty much all of that intro pretty much answers the first question. How did you get into directing? So we've established Jay Sandrich and kind of uh, uh, gave you the chops for camera work and all that. We have a list of questions from fans of the show. And is that all right if I ask you
Yeah, of
those
course.
questions?
No, I love that. I'm so blown away by our dedicated fan base that's been
Right?
loyal to us for all these years. Oh my God. You know, Jay, and I've said this to other people, when I was doing K.C. Undercover, I said to the cast, we birth these little half-hour babies every week, and
Yep.
we kind of kick them out into the world, and we don't realize that they're in countries you don't even know exist. We're on in Zimbabwe, we're on in
Right.
Botswana, we're on in all these places, and we don't realize the effect that these shows have. And when you have fans come up to you and say, "You helped me get through a hard time," I mean, that's a legacy. I just, I feel like we're blessed
We are.
with what we got to do. And, I've worked on a lot of shows over the years. And I got to tell you, Dream set the bar really high for quality and stuff that I was proud that we created.
Me
I've
too.
worked on some crap, I've worked on the thing shows all have in common. And my daughter Molly has gotten into TV now. She was a talent PA in the last season of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I tried to discourage her from doing it. I said,
Yep.
one thing you need to know, they all get canceled eventually. You're going to be out of work for a while. You're going to have ups and downs. Directing careers in particular are very fragile things because there's always somebody coming up who's, to quote Tony Wicks, the next big thing.
Right, 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 right.
And then they're not interested in you anymore.
Right,
You go from directing 25 episodes a year to 2, and you can't make a living doing 2 shows a year.
right.
So it's a very, very difficult career path, especially for new young directors now,
Yep.
because nobody's getting to do 20 shows anymore. You do 1 or 2, and that's it.
Right, right.
Hard to make a living doing that. But yeah, okay, go away. Ask.
Okay, cool. All right. So I guess the next question, because I think we kind of touched on the first, was what was it like working with the cast, and can you think of any one particular standout or any particular standout moments?
Well, the great thing about this cast was I really felt like, we bonded as a family and we could tease each other, make fun of each other. I mean, there's, a lot of silly stuff that went on, but when it came to the work, everybody was very dedicated to what they were doing. And, there's not one moment that I can pick out in particular, but, we all came to work, we all did our jobs, and I think we all walked away proud of what we had accomplished.
This is true. I can't argue with that. Yep. All right. What was the hardest part about directing California Dreams? And so I think this person thought that we were really young, because the question is, because the cast were so young, was that challenging? I don't think we were as young as people thought, but yeah. So what was the hardest part about directing, or most challenging part about directing California Dreams?
Well, I would say to me, the hardest part was making sure we did the show in the allotted time that we had.
Right.
There are times as a director that you feel like, okay, I wish we could do one more take of this scene because I think we can beat what we just shot. But then you look at the clock and you go, I don't have time to do that. We got to accept what we have and move on to the next scene. And that was kind of a challenge that I didn't like. I wish, we didn't have those parameters, but we did.
Right.
And listen, it's a business and it's, the company's money, and it's our job to do it in the time that we have. So,
Yeah,
occasionally I wish we hadn't, time to do another take of some scenes.
right.
That was
And on the other foot, like, I remember also just it being a thing where, if you said we are shooting that again, for us, it was like, okay, we're going to do what we got to do. And then at the other point too, us knowing when we didn't feel like we got it, but we had to move on.
yeah.
I remember those.
Well, that's frustrating, but it's, it's a business and
Yep.
you can ignore that.
Yep. And it's a big money business too. So you can't, like, there's people in charge that who you can't argue with and all that too as well. So.
Well, we'll talk a little later. I really want to talk about the last episode because rewatching these shows, there was something that happened in watching it that totally shocked me.
I think I think there are questions about that. If
Okay,
you
good.
want to touch on that now, or we can wait.
No, that's okay. Let's wait.
Okay. All right. So, did the cast ever get in trouble for messing around on the set?
None, I don't think really. I don't think you guys did anything that got you in trouble in the set. There's another show I directed where some of the cast drilled a hole between their dressing room and the girls' dressing room. That did not go down well.
Yeah, no, we didn't
But
do
you
anything like
guys
that.
never, you guys never, I mean, you fooled around. You guys goofed around a lot, and that
Yeah,
was okay
yeah,
because it was all playful and we could make, could make fun of each other and all of that. But it was okay. It never got out of hand. I
right.
thought the cast was pretty well disciplined.
I agree. I agree. Okay. Um, how did you feel about directing your first episode? And I think your first episode was High Plains Dreamer.
No, actually, it wasn't. It
Okay.
that's the first show that aired.
Okay.
That's
So,
what
so
people
this
think it was
person
the
thinks
first
that's your
show.
first.
Yeah, but the first show I directed was Wahaha Means I Love You or whatever that
Yes.
episode was called,
Yes.
the record store show. That
Yeah.
was the first. But I think the Western show, which I remember Kelly on Jimmy Fallon saying that was her least favorite episode of the entire run
Right.
because honestly, the writing for you and Kelly in that show was just not the best. The one shot I regret is when you're supposed to be hitting the horseshoe with a hammer,
Yep.
and the camera was supposed to push in over your hand, so we didn't see the hammer actually miss.
Right.
But it's obvious
And
when you look at it that the hammer hits 6 inches away from your hands.
it's a real hammer, so I wasn't going to hit my hand.
No, of course not.
Right.
And I look at it, and it's like I'm embarrassed that made the air. However, that show did so well, it got such a great response
Yeah.
that I think that's what got me hired to do the bulk of the episodes in season 3. It was a different type of show because it was a dream episode,
Yeah.
and we had a guest actor who had a very large part. The guy who played Big Bad Bo was wonderful,
Yep. He was awesome.
and William did a great job, and Jenny was great,
Yep.
and Cade was really, really funny in all the different parts that he had. But you and Kelly never got to shine in that episode. Now everybody had individual episodes where they took turns having like a big week.
Yep.
But that was not, and I understand how she feels, and I love her with all my heart. And I understand why it's not her favorite episode. But however, I think that's what got me the job for season 3.
Well, there you have it. Yep. Yeah, I remember that episode, and while I liked playing like the gunslinger, it was just kind of so comicky and gimmicky for me that I don't know, like it's a favorite episode, and then there's I don't know, I kind of wish I had been a little meaner or something. I don't know, like a little like maybe spitting
Well, it was a
platoon.
combination. I mean, the writing, which was really good for the most
Mhm.
part,
Yeah,
it was a combination takeoff on Cat Ballou, where you had strolling minstrels who were like guiding you through the movie,
yeah.
and High Noon.
Which Brantley did
And
a great job.
I told you guys, that was the history behind this episode. And Peter came in and said, forget about all that stuff. Just play the jokes, basically.
Right, right.
But I knew where that came from, and I tried to be respectful. I did shots of, the ticking clock and all of that to
Yep,
establish tension that they did in High Noon. And, Brentley did a lovely job.
he did.
God, it was so nice. We connected with him, I think, 2 years ago. Steph
Hmm.
and I were in Nashville, and we got together and had drinks with him, and it was just so nice to see him. And then he came out here and he did a musical that we went to see.
Yep,
And he has his career and an album he just recorded, and good for
yep.
him. He left the show because he wanted to. It's not like he got fired or anything.
Hmm.
I would have been happy to have him back, but he wanted to pursue a different career, and God bless him, he did. And he
Yep.
looks great and seems really happy in Nashville.
Yeah, and he's joining us for the reunion that you're going to see us at.
Yeah, I'm really
Yep.
happy about that. That's great.
So he joined us in for the New York one as well. Did a great job. Yeah, we had a great time. It was very cathartic. It was after 30 years to all get together and
Yeah.
do that. It was just like it was, as I think People Magazine interviewed us. Asked for some quotes, and I think I just said like my heart's full. Like I just feel like we've come full circle. 30 years later, it's just here we
Yeah.
are, and we were with our fans who 30 years ago were screaming crazily at us, and now we're adults. So it was a much different relationship. So anyway, all right, next one. Seeing as you directed the first episode of season 3, The Unforgiven, how did you feel about the cast change? Okay, I think we just touched on that. How did you feel about the cast changes, and was it a shock that Brentley Gore was no longer in the show? We can.
I think it was the Dreams cast was such a tight-knit group. I think it was really hard when Aaron came on the show. I don't think he was immediately accepted by everybody. I think it took him a couple of weeks for everybody to really deal with the fact that, okay, there's another Winkle on the show.
Mhm.
I suspect it was hard for him. I just got that feeling
Yep.
that it was hard to accept somebody new in the cast. I mean, I had the same thing on Hang Time when they brought new people in, and right away there was a little bit of everybody was just a little bit aloof until you knew what we were dealing with. And it turned out that, Aaron did a great job, and he's very charming in these shows. He was a cute kid, and the girls liked him. And, Linda, who probably had a lot to do with the casting, who I loved with all my heart. She died way too young.
Yeah.
She had a good eye. She had a good eye for talent. And ultimately, I look back at these shows, and he's just terrific in them. I mean, you all are, but he fit in right away. It took a while, and I think maybe he would say that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was his third day. I kind of noticed that, it was I think he was feeling as like the odd man out, and I actually
Yeah.
took him out for some beers and to play pool that night. So I think it
Okay.
was his third day I did that, and just because I felt like I've been there because I came in the second season, and it's not like nobody was crazily mean or anything. It was just you were the odd man out. You
Yeah.
were new, and it was like going to a new school, literally. So yeah, all right, cool. Who uh, who this I'm not even okay. Who was the worst at remembering their lines?
Okay. Um, this is kind of unfair, but it's hard to pick out one person. But I remember, and I hope this doesn't embarrass you, but I'm going to tell this story. And you were looking for an Indian name. And I remember I said, how about Big Chief Blow My Lines? Which got which got a huge laugh from the cast. And I meant it with love.
Yep.
But I would say, the guys probably were less on their lines than the girls were. But everybody blows a line occasionally.
Yep.
Everybody.
Yep.
But you guys didn't blow your lines a lot. You guys came in well prepared. I mean, occasionally everybody goes up. It's the nature of the beast. You got new lines coming in, new jokes coming in, rewrites constantly, and it's just going to happen. But I don't think anybody was outrageously like bad at learning their lines. I think you guys were all really good.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that's a funny story. All right. Next question is, did the cast ever improv lines?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think, Peter would have allowed that. I've been on shows where occasionally actors would come up with a zinger here and there, but I don't think we did. You guys pretty much stuck to the script, and
I have told stories where when we did, like Peter would walk on and be like, nah, that's no, I don't like that. So I do remember sometimes where we did try.
yeah,
Yeah, Peter was just like, nope, get back to what you were doing. Okay, all right, okay. I one in particular, I think it was old, or no, it was one where Michael, we were all old. I don't remember if it was old, but we were all old sitting around the table. And at the time there was a commercial, I fall in and I can't get up, and it was for a Lifeline Meta Alert
yeah.
button thing that you wore. And I was on a walker, and we got up to leave, and I fell over and said, I've fallen and I can't get up. And Peter was like, no, not going to do that. And it was like, oh, never, because we all thought it was funny. But yes, I do remember us trying, but usually being shut down pretty quick. All right. Uh, who do you think? Well, I know who I think, but who do you think was the funniest on the set?
Well, looking back at it, uh, Cade and William were not afraid to go big and broad.
Right.
I mean, they just didn't care if they looked silly. It's funny, on a lot of these teen shows, you've got kids who are maybe 13, 14, and their friends are saying to them, oh, why are you on this show? This is such a silly show. Why do you do this stuff? And they get very self-conscious,
Yep.
and they're afraid to like go big with a comedy. Those guys, the Googamoo guys, were never afraid to go big and broad, and they got, major laughs. And, Kate expected from William in particular. I'm watching these shows, and he's just fearless about where he went with some of the jokes and how big he went with it, and got major laughs. See, that's a big difference right now, that when you have an audience, you get like the validity that what you're doing is funny. Now, unfortunately on Bunk'd, because our sets were so big, it's summer camp, giant sets, the great lawn, all this stuff, we had to jam these sets into a big soundstage. We could never shoot in front of an audience.
Right.
And I really miss that, because there's such validation in getting an audience in there and hearing the laughter. It's
Which
like
we
we
did.
worked all week on this stuff,
Yep.
and that's your reward.
Yep.
And a lot of shows now don't have an audience anymore. I mean, it left when there was COVID and then the strike and all of that. And some shows now are going back to limited audience shows, but not like it was in the old days.
Right.
I really miss it. And maybe that's my theater background, that I love hearing, because you could have 5 jokes in a show that you think are going to kill.
Right. And don't.
Then you get a civilian audience in there and you don't get the response you expected. Now,
Right.
there were another 5 jokes that you thought were mildly funny that they're falling off their seats.
Right.
But that's the validation you get from having a live audience. And a lot of shows don't do that anymore. And I think it's a big mistake.
Right. Actually, I read a lot. We've got a lot of people who think they know what was happening on our set, and they're commenting on YouTube videos and stuff. And I'm like, well, okay. And I see a lot where they're like, well, this show was all laugh tracks. And I'm like, no, we had pickup episodes, and we have like 4 episodes a season that were pickup episodes that had a laugh track, but the rest don't. All the rest of them actually have an audience, and we filmed in front of an audience. So for the most part, no. So I see a lot of this stuff, and I've seen stuff, people say things about me and things about other cast members, and thinking they know what happened. I'm like, no, that's not exactly it. But yep, I heard that. Okay, do you remember? I don't think we did a lot. We do have a few stories, but do you remember personally the cast playing any pranks on the set?
No, I really don't. I don't remember that at all. I think if there were any pranks played, they were well hidden from my view.
Right. I remember a few, but nothing major. Nothing
Yeah.
that would thoroughly, ruin anybody's life or, all right. There's a question that says interesting onset stories, but I think we're getting to a lot of those with these other questions. Do you think the episode Rebel Without a okay. Do you think the episode Rebel Without a Nerve was a bit out of character for Jake? I have my opinion on it, but
I'll tell you mine, because I thought about this carefully. It was an interesting question.
Yep.
I think it was out of character.
Yep.
And I think what was missing when you had the motorcycle accident in the show, we should have had like maybe 1 or 2 policemen there to say to you, you're lucky you walked away from this alive, because we had another one of these last week and that guy was not so lucky. So there was something that triggered,
Right.
your lack of nerve.
Right.
I didn't think it was enough. I thought it was not Jake Summers, because Jake Summers doesn't do fear.
Right. I felt that way
Right.
too. I did.
We could have used a scene where there was something that triggered his fear, and not just let it happen on his own.
And not just let me stand up with lettuce and French fries falling out.
Right. It just didn't ring true to me. There were a couple of episodes. I mean, some of the the message episodes, because we had to qualify as educational programming to stay on the air.
Right.
It's like every episode supposedly has a theme to it, has a lesson that you learn.
Right.
I watched some of the episodes and I can't find a theme in some of them other than be nicer to your girlfriend.
Right. Right.
It's harder to find serious themes, but sometimes, we were really hard hitting in these episodes. I mean, I didn't really believe that, Tiffany would get hooked on steroids in 3 days.
Right.
I
Right.
believe that you would be addicted to nicotine in 3 days.
Right.
But they were message shows and we had to do them and we did them. But that one, Rebel Without a Nerve, just still bothers me a little bit because I agree with you. I think there had to be something to trigger Jay Summers' fear.
Yep.
Summers' fear, and we didn't really do it in that show.
Right. I actually had to I pulled from memory I think there was an episode of Happy Days where Fonzie loses his nerve.
Mhm.
I mean, I had to like actually think because I really didn't want to I didn't want to go up there and be Jake Summers, scaredy cat Jake Summers. And I had to remember, like, I think what was his name again? Oh my gosh, I'm reading his book. The guy who played Fonzie.
Henry Winkler.
Henry Winkler, thank you so much. I'm reading his book right now. Um, Henry Winkler had to do an episode. I'm pretty sure that he didn't want to do that either, But I also do remember, I think it was either you or Don saying, look, if you're afraid to make a fool out of yourself in this business, you're in the wrong business. And it was like, oh man, yeah, that's true. And that's pretty much what we did every week. And so that was, for that episode, it was like, all right, kid, so we'll do it. All right. Okay, who is your, it's hard to, who was your favorite California Dreams couple?
Oh wow, that's hard. I I would have to say not disrespecting anybody else, but I thought, Jake and Tiffany were just, ideal together. All American Girl Next Door, you the guy the romantic idol that everybody loves, the two of you together. I watched the episode Too Much, where you break up with Lorena and then get back with Tiffany, that I know somebody felt it was a little too soon for that to happen.
Right.
But Lorena had good reasons, and you had good reasons, because I had a relationship a long time ago where I was with somebody on and off for a couple of years, and I just realized that we did not have enough in common to last.
Right.
And she was a super spoiled rich girl. You were a middle-class guy of the streets. And the fact that, you both realized that you weren't going to make it in the long run, and why not save everybody a lot of time? I had a girlfriend once who said to me, we could get married, but don't we both know that 6 months from now I'll be taking your money? Don't we both know that?
Right.
And I was grateful to her for like laying it out. You're right.
Right.
We belong together. We're not going to make it in the long run. We've had a lot of fun. We've traveled. We've done all this stuff, but we're not compatible. And I think it was really honest of Lorena to say that to you. And you realized that you still had feelings for Tiffany and got back with her. And maybe it felt like it was a little too soon. I was a little confused watching these shows, how long you and Lorena dated.
Right.
When was the first episode? Because I don't think I directed it, when you and Lorena got together.
I think you did, actually, because, well, either you did or Miguel did, because Miguel stepped in for a couple episodes, I think. But I don't actually remember. And then also they showed them out of order on TV, so that there was an episode where Lorena and I together, and there's an episode where Tiff and I together, or there was also episodes where Tiff and I were together, and then the next episode we're not, and then the next episode we're together, but no explanation in the episode where we're not together. So a couple of them were shown out of order, I think accidentally. But that's a question that was going to come up actually, with the episode where Lorena and I break up and I go back to Tiff. Um, uh,
That
there
was too much.
too much. Yes. Do you remember anything specific about directing Diana, um, and and how to handle it?
No,
Because of the
but
weirdness of the
I thought, you both played what was written, and what was written was okay, and it worked. It was a little quick, but I thought you both did a really good job. The thing that I had forgotten about too much, but the thing that I really liked rewatching that show was I thought there was a perfect balance in that episode between the sentimental and the comedy.
right.
Because it was hard to watch a breakup and then have you get back with your old girlfriend, somebody else. But the guys in the tights in the ballet sequence was so funny that it perfectly balanced the drama and the comedy in that episode.
Right.
I had forgotten about that, and I watched it and I went, wow, this show really works because it's got both. It touches your heart and it makes you laugh.
Right.
And that's what good writing does and good acting does. And I thought we pulled it off with that episode.
I agree. I agree. And it's funny too, because I had actually studied ballet and they made Jake a terrible dancer. Yeah. But anyway, okay. Who, who, you may decline or you may answer as you will. Who was your favorite character on California Dreams?
Oh, I don't know. It's how can you pick your favorite child?
Right. Right.
You can't. It's like I loved everybody for different reasons, but once again, it was a team, it was a group, it was a family, and you can't pick your favorite child. So I can't really answer that.
Right. I've told
You
people. Go ahead.
you were all unique. You were all unique. Everybody had their own personality. Everybody was lovable in their own way.
Right. I've told people that this was when people say like they say certain things to me, and my response is usually like, "Hey, I didn't make this show on my own. This wasn't Jay doing all this. There was people there. We had a massive crew, and Patrick and Don and Miguel and this massive crew of people who made this happen, and the writers and the so nobody was the star. We all put this thing together,
Yeah.
which was and as you've said before, going back and watching some of these episodes, sometimes I'm like, this is actually pretty good. Like, it's not that bad, So, all right. We actually talked about this before we started recording. What do you think of California Dreams being called the stepchild to Saved by the Bell? I actually remember hearing the word redheaded stepchild, the words redheaded stepchild. And do you think California Dreams could have been bigger if they had wanted it to be, and if it was not in the Saved by the Bell shadow?
Well, we were definitely in the shadow of Bell, and maybe we didn't get the attention and respect that I think the show deserved because we were in their shadow. Uh, but we all believe we were the better show. And to this day, I believe we were the better show because, I said to you in the pre-chat that we had that on Bell, you had like Zach and Slater. Neither one were really nice guys. On Dreams, you had people that I believe our audience wanted to be friends with. I believe they would like to sit in the loft with you people and play video games or help the girls in the kitchen make cookies.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that warm and fuzzy feeling during Bell that I got working on and watching California Dreams. And I think that's part of the legacy that has kept you guys alive in fans' mind is that we were audience friendly.
Especially that we're still alive in so many people's minds without streaming. Like, no, we're not streaming anywhere. We're not. People have to go to YouTube and look for us specifically. It's frustrating, but yeah,
I can't believe it's not streaming somewhere, and I don't think any of us have the answer as to who owns the rights or what's holding this up.
Right. We've tried. We've asked. We don't. Nobody knows.
I mean, how can they, I mean, they aired on YouTube. Nobody gets any residuals. Nobody gets any money from this. How can they do that? It's a copyrighted show. I don't understand. But, there's such a body of work out there. And, I had said to Franco when we knew we were winding up, and we were lucky enough that we knew the show was going to get canceled and we could do a final episode and tie things together. A lot of shows don't get that. A lot of shows, we love you, we love you, we love you, you're canceled.
Right.
But we had the opportunity to do that. And that was a very special thing. And I said to Franco one day, we have created this body of work these last couple of seasons that's really impressive when you look at what we've accomplished. And that gave Franco the idea to make the CD of all the songs that we've done.
Right, right.
And it was packed away in a box. I just found it recently that I still have it because it was impressive. I mean, we did 40 songs, original songs,
Yep.
and so many of them are so good.
My CD, go ahead.
No, it's an impressive body of work.
My CD was actually stolen, and then my wife found one on eBay, probably mine, and bought it. And we paid a lot for it. We paid quite a bit for it. But yeah, so I have that anthology CD that was given to the casting crew. I now have it again. But yeah, it just disappeared from a party one night, along with a few other things. My personalized David Bowie autograph was taken off the wall and taken along with that as well. So anyway.
So Jay, tell me, what could I get for that CD now?
Oh, I think we got ours. I think it was like 150, and that was like over 10 years ago.
Wow.
And then I think we've seen them between 150 and a couple $100.
That's crazy.
And then I've also heard that there's a few people who actually have a few like a box full of them in their garage who worked on the show. A couple people I've heard. Yeah, I think we did get a few from Franco to sell or give away as whatever, I don't remember, for the New York City reunion. I think he had some, so yeah. But yeah, there was some good music, and I give credit to Steve Tyrell and his musical prowess for putting together this stuff. Zachary Thorne doing Mark's voice, Barry Coughing doing my voice, and then obviously the cast doing their own voices as well. Like there was some really good stuff. Definitely. Yeah, it is a shame that we're not streaming.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. You directed two of the more iconic and more serious episodes. We've kind of touched on Tiffany's Gold, but also Boys R Us and Tiffany's Gold. What was it like working with Kelly and William on those?
Well, they both really did a fabulous job on those shows. William, the intensity of William's performance in Boys R Us is just riveting. I mean, he met the challenge of what was a very difficult episode to do, and Kelly too. I mean, it was hard to believe that this, wholesome girl next door would get addicted to steroids, but she went with it and she played it and she did a great job. And William too. Those were both, tough episodes to do. They were hard hitting.
Yep.
And I thought both actors rose to the challenge and did great work.
Especially William being the funny man usually.
Yeah.
And then going into that, like it was really weird, kind of surreal for me being on the set and watching Will just not be funny every time he opened his mouth. Yeah, so that was how I felt about that one. But yeah, no, he did a great job.
Yeah.
All right. Yep, too much we've touched on. Okay, Harley and the Marlboro Man. So what was it like working somebody wants to know, what was it like working with Eddie Mecca and Jay on that episode?
Well, Eddie Mecca was a, consummate character actor who had a great career. And when you get a guest star like that on your show, I think it makes everybody raise their game a little bit that week because this guy's going to be so good. And, I saw that happen also with Cade on the blind date show,
Mhm.
where Nikki Cox came in and she was brilliant in this part.
Yeah.
She was just brilliant. And Cage, he had to look around and say to himself, I got to up my game this week. Cade just came through and he matched her.
Yep.
But he knew that, I gotta work on this or I'm gonna get blown off the stage.
Right.
And he didn't,
Right.
because she was so good in that and the next episode where they broke up, The Long Goodbye, where he was also good. And it's fun when you have a guest star that makes everybody kind of pay a little more attention, because we got somebody here who's going to be really good and we're all going to be really good too and try to match the performance.
Right.
And I thought that's what you guys did when we had, it was rare that we had guest stars on the show.
Right.
It didn't happen all that often.
Right.
But in those cases, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I remember when I think it was Ron had come down and said, "Hey, guess who's playing your uncle in Harley and the Marlboro Man?" And I said, "Who?" And he said, "Eddie Mecca." And I immediately, I was just like, "Nah, nah, no, the big ragu, really? Are you serious? Like the big ragu is my uncle?" Like it was mind blowing for me, and awesome, and yeah, that was that was definitely a highlight, a lifetime highlight, not just a career thing. It was just it was a lifetime thing that, like, wow, shit, Eddie Mecca played my uncle on something.
Well, he didn't have a lot of scenes. There were only a couple of
No,
scenes with the two of you. It was not like that much screen time, but he really made an impact.
he did.
And you guys were terrific together.
I
Much
appreciate
fun.
it. Yeah, it was, and it affected. I actually tried to quit smoking after that episode. It didn't work out too well. I've quit now, but it took me a while. Yeah. So, all right. How did you feel directing the final episode, the last gig? Do you like the way it ended, and do you think the show could have gone on longer?
Okay, this is an interesting question. We could have maybe done one more year, but there are only so many years you can keep the cast in high school.
Right.
So it kind of felt like it was a natural end to the show. I wish we could have done one more, but I was happy with the way it got resolved and that we got to do a final episode. But, and I started to talk to you about this earlier, I had one big shock because I had not seen the final episode in 30 years.
Right. Oh,
And
yes.
I played it, and I played it. And I was shocked because the number at the end, I'm so glad I was there, is not the take that I put in my director's cut. We did it twice.
Yep.
The first take we did was very emotional because we were all very, very sad and emotional that week. And the first take we did, Kelly and Jenny were crying, the tears rolling down their face. And it was very touching and very emotional. And we finished it. And I remember Cade saying, Pat won't make us do this again. And I came out and I said, we got to do it again. And my reasoning behind that was, we have an audience, some of whom are 7 and 8 years old, and this may just be too sad to air.
Right.
And we got to do another take just as protection. But when I edited this show, I put in the first take. And when I watched it this week, what they aired was the second take. So somebody, either at NBC or whether it was Peter Engel, decided that the first take was just too sad to air. And I was shocked by that because I can't remember anybody ever changing takes on a cut that we submitted to the network.
Right.
I was just shocked by that. But, somebody had the reasons and it is what it is. And it worked. I mean, it was terrific, but it didn't have the impact of that first take where everybody was crying.
Yep.
Because that's how we all felt. Everybody wanted to cry.
Oh, it was a horrible day.
Yeah.
It really
No,
was.
very, very, very difficult day for everybody involved. It was, listen, this show is 5 years you're together. I mean, that's really rare that a show runs that long.
Yep.
Bunk'd I was just on ran for 7 years on Disney. I just did the last 4 seasons, which spread over 5 years. And that became a family. And it was so hard. God, the last night when we did the final episode, it was just really, really tough. And we had a big party afterwards, and it was hard to say goodbye. And you become close. They're your brothers and sisters. You
Right.
spend more time with them than you do with your own family for the most part.
Right. People ask me, and I'm like, look, did we always get along? No. Did we sometimes get along? Yes. Did we have a great time doing what we did? Yes. Was it all perfect? No. We were this dysfunctional family that, just like every family, it was no more functional or dysfunctional than my real family. It was just, and yeah, walking away from it was so hard.
Yeah.
It was so difficult to do. And actually waking up the next Monday and just being like, what's going on? Like there's nothing to go back to. It's over. It's done. And I think in my own brain, I kind of had to disassociate psychologically. I had to actually kind of break up with the show and the cast in my own head in a way, just to kind of get through it. And then my way of dealing with it, which is probably not the best way to deal with it, but at the time, that's what I did. So.
Well, it's hard because you become really close, and then all of a sudden you wake up and it's not there.
Yep.
And there's a sense of loss. And when Bunk'd was over, I've been going through a depression. I just, I miss the studio life. I miss the camaraderie. I miss craft service. I miss the funny people.
Yep.
It's hard because you do become really close. But I think the last episode is great. I think the writing was really good, and they really found a way to conclude the series.
Yep.
And I think we did a really good job. I was just very surprised looking at what made it into the final cut, because it's not what I really wanted. I was fighting for the first version, but I didn't get it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I do remember. Yeah, that was, the tears were real. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I need to stop thinking about that for a minute.
now that we've both depressed each other, let's go on.
Yeah, no, it still depresses me. Like when I talk about it, it's this like fountain of emotion that always just starts to come up to about here, and then I suppress it. And because yeah, it wasn't just the Eddie Mecca, like Eddie Mecca wasn't just a lifetime thing. Dreams was a lifetime thing as well. And I think we all feel that way. At least all the cast does. I know, I know through some conversation we've had, you do. So yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Um, I'm gonna skip a bunch of questions and go back to them. Just to get to something lighter. I think some of the guys that have submitted questions, I think a popular one was, what was it like working with Zendaya?
Well, Zendaya is a consummate professional. I did 100 episodes with her over 3 seasons, and we knew she was a breakout star. I mean, it was obvious. We shot the pilot, and Disney spent months testing it, and we knew when we walked up that stage that this was going to be a hit show, that this girl is a star.
Right.
And it took them like 6 months, 8 months of testing to get it on the air. I think it was a whole year between when we shot the pilot and when the first episode aired. And I didn't understand why, why it took so long in development to get this thing on the air. But by the last season, it was obvious that she had a great future, and this was going to be the last year of the show. But she was a consummate professional. There was one day, quick funny story, that she came in, and there's this guy there, and they're like over in the corner, and they look like they're a little touchy-feely, and don't know what's going on. And I said to her dialogue coach, is this like who is this pimply-faced little British kid? Is this like the new boyfriend or something? I said, Pat, that British kid is the new Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
And he was.
Yeah.
And Tom Holland, and he hung out with us all week, and he was like the coolest, nicest guy. But I totally read the situation. And no, she was delightful to work with. And like I said, consummate professional, always there on time, always knew her lines. Your mom and dad were around the set quite often. but she was great. And I love the fact that she's become this like international superstar now. And good for her, because it's nice to see good people win. And she's certainly one of them.
That's a great story. I appreciate that. Also, if you haven't seen it, I would suggest, I'm gonna ask you if you've seen it first. Have you seen Tom Holland's lip sync battle video where he does Rihanna's Umbrella?
You know, I think I saw that a couple of years ago. I
Mhm.
think I saw it. Yeah.
It's amazing, actually. Like normally I don't really like that show very much. It's okay, it's all right, but
Yeah.
that I saw that and that was just he was awesome. He was fantastic.
Oh,
Uh,
he really, really talented guy. Just
yeah,
terrific and nice as could be.
yep, awesome. That's well, it's good to hear. It's always good to hear that people that we yeah. Okay. Let's see. Do you have okay, yes. Do you have a favorite episode that you directed?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I got a handful.
Okay.
You know, I love High Plains Drifter because I think that's what got me the job.
Yep.
I love Blind Dates. I love Winklewick's World because I think it was hysterically funny with the Goo Goo Moo guys
Yep.
and Kelly doing her thing, which was terrific. Um, you know, Too Much, Field of A, the last gig. I got bunches. It's hard to, like I said, pick one of your favorite children because there are a handful that I love. I don't think, honestly, I'm looking at all these shows. I can't pick a show that I would say was a bad episode.
Right.
I mean, there's some that were better than others. Some the writing was better. Some, some stand out more than others. But God, as a body of work, I think they're all terrific, and they still stand up to this day. And my God, who would have thought that 30 years ago when we walked up that soundstage
Right.
that people would still care about this show, and they do.
Right.
And it's a tribute to you and the cast and everybody that
And
we've
you.
maintained this fan base. Phenomenal.
Yep. Yeah, you and you're a big part of that too. So I again thank you for your tutelage and your direction and your part and it's almost like you know you helped bring us up as well. You know, like because we were all pretty young at the time. So thank you to you as well for that from the bottom of my heart. Um, okay. Do you still keep in contact with any of the cast and crew?
Pretty much most of the cast.
Yep.
Uh, I'm still Facebook friends with the bunch of you. And it's so great to hear now and then what everybody is up to. I'm so glad that Dinah Reby came back to the fold.
Yep.
She'd been missing for a number of years. None of us knew what happened to her. I think that's really cool now that she's rejoined the gang. And I love hearing from everybody and what they're up to these days. Everybody seems to be pretty happy.
Actually, with Diana, my wife Tracy had done some sleuthing, found her, and then got her info to Kelly for the New York City reunion. So yeah, so that's so and then when she said yes, we were like, yes, all right, this is great. So and then she came and just she came and she was probably the best California Dreams hype woman that we could have possibly imagined during the reunion. I just wanted you to know. I don't know if you've watched all the videos, but
Well, I did. I did watch the videos. I thought she was terrific.
she was amazing. Yeah. So, all right. Let's see. Okay. And we did talk about the music. Do you have a favorite song from the show?
Probably She's Not You,
Okay.
which I know we did a couple of times
Mhm.
in several episodes, but that one really sticks in my head. A lot of the songs are really good, but that one is probably my favorite.
It is a good song. We'll be doing that. I think there's a Brentley version and then a Jake version. And then um for our reunion, Brentley pretty much does. I do a line or two. But yeah. Uh
Are you guys going to rehearse before the gig?
we're gonna have 1 day of rehearsal, as far as I know. One long day of rehearsal, which is what we did in New York City. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and then the next day we went and did it. And because one day of rehearsal, like I can catalog in my mind every little mistake I made throughout the entire show. Like I know exactly where I think having done that and then doing another day of rehearsal this time, maybe a slightly different set list. I don't know yet. But it's going to be a little easier. And then yeah, I've taken to singing my own stuff now as opposed to, you know, how it was before. And then yeah, so yes, we did have the yeah. So basically we're gonna, each of us are doing our own rehearsals at home and then have the one day. And then hopefully it all works out again, which it worked out in New York. All right.
Where are you staying when you're out here? Do you have do you get a hotel or something? Do you know where you're
Um,
staying?
I have family,
Oh,
and I
good.
have family all over the country, but I have family in Agoura Hills. Um, and so I go stay usually there, but it's also Agoura Hills and it's quite a hike. So I'll be actually staying with Jenny for part of it. So some with in Agoura Hills, some with Jenny where Jenny lives. She's a little closer to the venue, and then back to Agoura Hills. And then and then I think we're going somewhere else. I can't talk about that yet. But I think we're going somewhere else a little later. So I'm actually going to be staying a little bit longer, but I'll be working my tech job that I do, my 9 to 5 job. I'll be working that basically from 4 to midnight because that's our hour. I'll be, I work Australian hours in America, so I'll be working like 2 weeks remotely. And then yeah, and then back to Australia. So where are you? What area-ish are you in?
We're in Playa del Rey. We
Know it?
sold our house in Venice like 2.5 years ago, and our kids are out of the house now, and we had all this room we didn't need,
Yep.
and we sold it like the peak of the market. We did very well. We're renting a condo in Playa del Rey. We are right on the channel from the marina to Playa, where we sit and watch the boats go out all day long. It's really, really pretty, and it's quiet and peaceful. I lived here when I was single, like 30 years ago with a roommate,
Yep.
and the town has not changed so much at
Right.
all because one road in, one road out. Tourists don't come here. There's no parking. We'll see the fireworks next week from our roof from a barge that's right outside our building
Right.
on
Right.
the channel. It's peaceful, it's quiet. There are a couple of really good restaurants, a couple of good local bars, but it doesn't have the homeless population that Venice has right now. It was unsafe to walk out after 9 o'clock at night in the
Yep.
neighborhood we were in. We were right by the Venice Pier, and it was a great neighborhood when we moved in, but it's gone downhill, and this suits us. It's like Stephanie and I, we both come from middle-class families. We never bought into the whole Hollywood scene. It's like neither of us are ever going to drive a Tesla.
Right. Right.
I drive a Honda Civic, which is fine with me. And we're just comfortable here. And we like it. We may buy the place if the owner comes down a little bit in price. Now that Bunk'd is over, I don't have a job lined up, and there are no sitcoms in production right now. I may file for retirement. I don't want to, but I may.
Yep.
We'll see what happens in the next couple of months. And we want to travel. We're going to do some traveling. Got a couple of trips lined up, and I hope to find another show. But who knows? I think I've said to you, you don't leave show business leaves you. And I've
Yep.
had a bunch of friends that's happened to in the last couple of years who used to work all the time, and whether or not we've aged out or just there's the next big thing coming up, I don't know. We'll see what the future brings. I'm looking forward to finding another job, but we'll see. It could be
Yep.
my time. I don't know.
I did, when you say show business leaves you, like I did leave it purposefully after Dreams, but you're right, it does leave you, because when I decided years and years later that hey, maybe I'll get back into it, it was like, really? We'll see. And it hasn't really, I haven't been embraced. It hasn't embraced me back yet. So you're right, it does. That's exactly what happens. So
Well,
uh,
Jay, I spent 7 years where I was just directing.
yep.
And, you know, I went on to do some primetime stuff. I did news radio, which is probably the the best quality show that I've ever done when,
Yep.
you know, Phil Hartman was alive, and I got to work with this incredible cast of people. It was not an easy show to do
Right.
because sometimes you didn't get, I had one episode I directed where I sat down at the table read and they handed me a script and I'm directing the show at the table. There are 50 people in the room. I don't know what the show's about because they just wrote it at midnight the night before.
Right.
And you know, in a table read, you have to read the stage directions and you become a character in the play.
Right.
You can get laughs reading the stage directions. I
Right.
didn't know what the show was about. They handed me a script. It was still warm coming off of the copier.
Yep.
And that was a difficult show for many reasons, but the end result was brilliant.
Yep.
But I spent 7 years just directing, and then it all went away. And I had a whole year where I had to kind of reinvent myself and go back. And I had lunch with Franco, a
Mhm.
producer from Dreams, and he was doing this Warner Brothers show. And I wanted to get a job as the audience switcher who would cut the show for the live audience. Because all the years sitting in a booth, snapping, taking the shots, doing all of that, I had really good timing on this, but it
Mhm.
paid next to nothing. And Franco said to me, you know, you were like overqualified for this job. It doesn't pay enough. It's, you know, it's not right. And I said, I need to get back on a soundstage
Yep.
because you don't find out where the jobs are sitting at home. By the time a show is listed in Variety or the Hollywood Reporter,
It's already.
It's staffed already. And the only way you find out what's happening is when you're in the middle of it. And I said, Franco, I will do anything. I'll make the coffee to get back into this again.
Yep.
And it took me 2 or 3 years. And I did shows. I was directing consultant in Warsaw, Poland for The Nanny and Who's the Boss. And I did Married with Children in Budapest, Hungary as a consultant to help them reinvent the wheel because they'd never done multi-camera sitcoms before.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay. Wow.
It was wild. And I did
I
that.
bet.
Some of the most crazy experiences of my life. I get to Warsaw and I check into my hotel and I call my wife and I said, I am on a street that's 24 letters long and I don't know 6 of them.
Right.
And
Right.
I go put my ATM card in a ATM machine and I get 500 zlotys out. And I don't know what a zloty is or what
Right.
it buys you.
Right. Right. Right.
And then I found an Irish bar right down the street from my hotel called Irelandski.
Right.
And I thought, great, you know, I'll go listen to Irish music. This will be fun. And I go there and it's chubby Polish guys playing cover tunes from the 80s and 90s. And I go there and I ordered a Polish beer and I'm listening to them to play I Shot the Sheriff.
Wow. Wow. Yep.
And then they finish their set with a 15-minute long version of Free Bird. And I'm thinking, I'm 6,000 miles away from home and no one would believe what I'm seeing tonight.
And isn't
But
that about 4 minutes longer than the original as well?
yeah, it was hysterically funny, but what a great experience.
Right.
And then I came back and I started working as an associate director again and wound up going to Canada, worked on shows up there for like 2 or 3 years on and off,
Yep.
and made a connection with a producer who was doing a Disney show who got me back. And then that led to 10 years of work at Disney. But it
Awesome.
took a while. Took a
Yep.
while to get back in.
Yep.
Uh, but you know, we'll see what the future brings. Who knows?
Right. I actually saw somebody had sent me a clip of, you mentioned Hungary, and somebody had sent me a clip of our show dubbed in Hungarian,
Oh, really?
and I sounded really strange. Like my voice did not sound like it should be Jake's voice. And then I think Michael Cade's was even far more out there than Jake's was. But yeah, that was kind of enlightening. And so I actually kind of went on a search and found a couple different ones. I've heard myself in Japanese. I've heard myself in different languages, and the Spanish one's pretty funny. Well, I don't even know if there's a Spanish version and a Mexican Spanish version, or if they're just a Spanish version. But I only saw one Spanish version. Let me just see if there's anything else here. I think I'm going to end this on. I I think this is a good one to end this on. If you could go back and change anything about the show, what would it be? Whether it be a character, how the show ended, specific episodes. If you could change one thing about the show, what would it be?
Well, you know, I told you earlier, it's that one shot in Hot Plains Drifter where you're supposed to hit your thumb with the hammer,
Yep.
and it's obvious that you miss it by like 6 inches because the camera didn't push in tight enough. I would
Yep.
change that. I would reshoot it maybe in slow motion and have you like actually hit your thumb, and then we could speed it up and make it look like you hurt yourself.
Right.
That's the only shot I regret in an episode that I really love. But no, there's very little I would change. I think, God, I just feel blessed that we had this experience together and that we had those years of producing good work.
Yep.
And we can look back on it with pride.
Yep.
And
And I do.
Yeah, and I do too. And it's a tribute to you all that the fans have stayed with us for all these years. And I look forward to seeing you guys play, and we'll have a good time.
We will. And yeah, like I said, you were a massive, massive influence and force in our formative years and in parts of our formative years. And just again, from me, thank you for your direction and your being part of our lives as well, and part of our dreams lives as well. So it's interesting because you weren't just part of our lives, you were part of our dreams lives, and you were also part of our lives. And so I just wanted to thank you for that. And it's always fond memories of you, Patrick. Always.
Well, you know, I appreciate the team that we had and the work that was done. And it was funny because, you know, emotionally going back and watching these episodes, there were a couple times I filled up with tears. And I didn't expect that. Even after all these years, this show still means a lot to me and is so close to my heart. And I look forward to seeing you guys in a couple of weeks.
And we look forward to seeing you. I know I
And
do.
I hope I did okay, you know, because I'm not comfortable. I'm better off behind the camera than in front of one. But I hope I answered your questions and you got what you wanted.
You did fantastically. I'm going to leave it to my wife to edit if there needs any editing. And Tracy, if it doesn't, then it doesn't, and we'll just release it as it is. And then if it
Well,
does,
you know,
if she thinks it does,
cut out anything where I like foamed at the mouth and talked too much. So reduce it.
or we'll see what she thinks. She's a lot smarter about that kind of stuff than I am. So yeah, I'll release stuff and say what's wrong with it, and she'll say Jay.
Now, is she coming with you?
No, she has we both have serious back and neck issues.
Oh,
Hers are probably a little bit worse than mine. Mine are pretty bad, but hers are worse than mine. So her travel would be very difficult. Plus, we have two special needs dogs. There's no way she would leave them with anyone. Because they need a certain type of care that we both become, but she's even better, very good at giving to these particular dogs, especially one of them with a condition called megaesophagus. And it's where her esophagus just does not actually pump food down to her stomach.
oh,
So we have to feed her sitting in what's called a Bailey chair and then hold her up and it's the food she gets, we have to specially prepare so that it will slide down her throat. And we have to hold her up for 2 hours after every time she eats, and she eats twice a day. So 2 hours after every time she eats or drinks. So that's another 20 minutes every time she drinks. And we have to hold her up for 2 hours after every meal. So to make sure that all the food slides down into her stomach.
wow.
An interesting tidbit, the medication that she has that we've got her on to close her esophagus or contract it after she eats is actually Viagra.
Wow. What?
Right. It's sildenafil. It's chicken flavored sildenafil, which is the main compound in Viagra.
Wow.
Yep. Who knew? Anyway.
Yeah.
So, but Patrick, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Jay.
Really appreciate it. And we'll be seeing you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Maloney, 32 something episodes of California Dreams, Bunk'd, Harry Danger, Sydney to the Max, K.C Undercover, Richie Rich, Girl Meets World, Boy Meets World, My Two Dads, Saved by the Bell, Give Me a Break, Class of '86, 5 seasons of the Tony Awards, prolific director and associate director, and just we were so lucky to have him. So ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Maloney, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Jay. It was a privilege, and thanks for letting me revisit old times.
My
Terrific.
pleasure. My
See you in a
pleasure.
couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
All right.
I look forward to it.
Bye-bye. Me
All right,
too.
cheers.